Welcome to the Ingredient Marketing Podcast, the show for food and beverage ingredient suppliers and manufacturers focused on driving awareness, interest, and demand. Each episode, our host, Jake Oliver, talks with ingredient brands and industry experts about what's actually working in B2B ingredient marketing today. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Food and Beverage Ingredient Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Oliver. Joining me today is Chris Lasarchik. He's my coworker and our talented SEO director at Blueprint Digital. Chris, thanks for joining me today. How you feeling?
Feeling good. Excited to get started talking about keywords.
Yeah, we're going to be discussing building a keyword strategy for food and beverage ingredient marketing today, and a lot of good stuff to cover, including how to find B2B keywords and stay away from B2C keywords, how to use high, mid, and low funnel keywords in your strategy, and a lot more there. So I think this episode will be valuable if you would like more website traffic and conversions from Google and other search engines, whether that's through SEO, organic traffic, paid search, or both. So without further ado, let's jump on in. First thing we want to talk about today is assessing whether a keyword has B2B or B2C intent. First, let me briefly explain what a keyword is. So a keyword is a search or a phrase run on Google that we as digital marketers will target in an attempt to show up on Google via organic or sponsored ad results when someone is searching that phrase. And of course, when I say a B2B versus a B2C keyword, what we mean is this search being run by a business looking for a business solution, or is this search being run by a consumer looking for a consumer result? Quick example there would be almond paste supplier. Almond paste supplier would be a B2B search, whereas best almond butter would be a pretty common B2C search. So Chris, can you elaborate a little bit on this point, and why is it important, first of all, to gauge that B2B versus B2C intent? And then maybe a few words or modifiers that you're looking at within the keyword that help you decide if it is a B2B or a B2C keyword.
Yeah, absolutely. This is important because if you target the wrong intent, you can drive traffic that's never going to convert. So for ingredient suppliers, the risk is attracting consumers or students when the real buyer is something like a formulator, a procurement lead, or a product developer. B2B intent tells us the searcher is solving a business problem. They're looking for a supplier, a spec, an application, or a solution they can actually use in production. Whereas B2C intent usually means curiosity, recipes, general education, which might be fine for awareness, but not demand. So some of the modifiers I look for to gauge intent are words like supplier, manufacturer, bulk, wholesale, industrial, food grade for applications like beverage, bakery, frozen, or dairy. Those tend to signal a business search. And on the flip side, words like best recipe, how to use, or substitute usually skew consumer. So almond paste supplier is clearly B2B, whereas best almond paste is almost always consumer.
Great. Very good. And there are rare cases when we might lean into a keyword, especially on paid search, which we'll get to in a bit, that we think there might be some B2C intent in here, but we feel there's going to be some B2B searchers in there as well. And so we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. And really in this space, a lot of keywords are not black and white. This is a B2B search or a B2C search, right? A lot of times it is mixed intent, and it's trying to understand how does that mix fall. So let's move on here, Chris, talking a little bit about high, mid versus low funnel keywords. So what we say when we say high, mid, low funnel, we're talking about the buyer's journey funnel, right? Chris, can you elaborate a little bit more on what exactly that means, and maybe giving, again, some examples of some keywords that you would call high funnel keyword, a mid funnel, or a low funnel keyword?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. High, mid, and low funnel, that stuff we're really talking about how close someone is to making a sourcing or a spec decision. So top of funnel keywords are informational. The buyer may not even know which ingredient or supplier they want yet. They're researching trends, benefits, problems. So examples of that would be benefits of almond protein, clean label stabilizers, or something like sustainable emulsifiers for beverages. Middle funnel keywords show intent around a specific ingredient or use case. So the buyer's narrowing options and thinking about fit. And examples of that would be almond paste for frozen desserts, plant-based emulsifiers, or heat-stable cocoa powder applications. And then finally, bottom of funnel keywords, those are high intent. So these usually include sourcing language and geography. And examples of those would be something like almond paste supplier USA, food grade emulsifier manufacturer, bulk almond paste food service. So those terms usually come from procurement or R&D teams that are actively looking at a short list vendors and make a decision.
Great. So we've talked about gauging intent, right? B2B, B2C, and grouping keywords into high, mid, and low funnels. Let's let's jump to now actually what we're considering as we're building a keyword strategy in the F&B ingredient space for organic traffic, so an SEO keyword strategy, or for paid traffic, paid search keyword strategy. Before we do that, let me clarify quickly what those phrases mean. When we say SEO, which most of our listeners are probably aware, but search engine optimization, essentially we're trying to rank for these keywords, for these searches organically. So getting free traffic from these searches to your website. And when we say paid search, or you'll hear people say PPC often, or Google ads, we're talking about paying to show up for these same keywords. So there's a lot of similarities and some nuanced differences in what we're thinking about when we're putting together a keyword strategy for organic versus paid search. That has to do with competition, volume, place and funnel, a lot of different things. So Chris, let me go ahead and pass it to you first. Can you elaborate a bit on your approach as you're building an SEO keyword strategy in this space?
Yeah, when we build an SEO keyword strategy, we start by mapping keywords to both intent and funnel stage. So high funnel keywords are typically best suited for educational content like blog posts and guides or resource pages. And these help you show up early in the buyer's research process and build credibility with R&D and technical teams, for example. Mid-funnel keywords can still live in blog content, but they often perform better when paired with application pages or solution-focused content. And this is where you start to show how your ingredient works in specific products or formats. And then low-funnel keywords should almost always point to a dedicated landing page. And those pages are built to clearly explain what you offer, who it's for, how to start a conversation, convert, right, with supplier, manufacturer, and bulk terms on there. So from a content perspective, a few tips that consistently help with ranking in organic. I would say be specific about applications and use cases for technical buyers, not just search engines, right, for people, real human beings. Use clear headings that match how buyers think, and always avoid stuffing keywords and really just focus on clarity for your target audience. So the goal is not to rank for everything. The goal is to rank for the searches that actually lead to spec and sourcing.
Great. And as we're talking about looking at a keyword and trying to understand place and funnel, and is this a B2B keyword, it really helps to look at Google, right? To run that search on Google and ultimately look at the organic results and look at the ad results and what people feel is worth paying for with that keyword. But not to say you want to exactly match what everybody else on Google is doing. In a lot of ways you don't, but that is a strong signal of what type of content this search really Google thinks the searcher is looking for. And you could learn a lot by just looking at the existing results for the keywords that you're targeting. So moving to paid search, really first and foremost in the F&B ingredient space with paid search, we want to use our ad budget to dominate the keywords we feel great about, which often is only 10 to 20 keywords, right? Depending on what your ingredients are. And we really want to go after low funnel keywords, typically longer tail keywords. And oftentimes these keywords have low search volume, but if you're able to capture a lot of the traffic, a lot of the clicks from that search volume, it's going to bring you much higher quality, more conversional traffic than going after keywords that are high funnel, high volume, but are not going to get you that quality traffic. So an example would be a keyword like almond or cashew ingredient manufacturer, California, right? Very specific, very clearly a B2B search, very low funnel. They're looking for a business to speak with. So we want to identify those keywords. That's step number one for our paid search campaigns. And we want to dominate those keywords if we can. We also, a few other ways we can leverage paid search beyond just going after the most conversional keywords. We can use paid search budget actually to help our SEO strategy. And we can do this by experimenting with keywords that you might be looking at and considering putting some effort towards to rank organically, but you're unsure if you're actually going to get meaningful behaviors on your website from catching those searchers. So paired with some basic conversion tracking, essentially setting up things like being able to see bounce rate, being able to see people who are clicking on your call to actions on your website, really can tell you time on page, right? These things can tell you, okay, we paid to get somebody who searched this to our website. Are they bouncing or are they engaging with the website? And that could be a strong signal that we were unsure about this keyword, but actually we think we should double down and try to not just purchase that traffic through paid search, but actually try to rank for that search organically. Another way that we'll use paid search budget is almost more of an awareness play, especially if you have great blog content, informational content on your website. It may be worth paying to bring questions, people who are high funnel, just researching to your website that you think aren't going to lead to a conversion immediately on the first time visiting your website, but could later on And you could almost look at this like a Facebook ad campaign, right? Not to say that we don't run meta ads to drive conversions. We certainly do. But meta, you certainly get a lot more awareness that comes with that platform, right? And so this isn't necessarily right for every brand. It depends certainly on your budget and is there a lot of awareness about your solution? Are you trying to gain market share? But it could be a good strategy to really pay for some searches that you know are not going to immediately convert, but are still valuable searches to get to your website. Even with that, you want to try to hone in on B2B searches, right? Because ultimately consumers are not going to convert for you. As always with paid search, last point here is that you want to have great page experience, great, whether you're using landing pages, isolated landing pages, or sending traffic to your website. You want a great experience. You want some conversion steps that the user can take, not only like a contact form, but maybe accessing a brochure that you have on your website. Great content, messaging, design is all important to get the most out of your ad budget. So I think that wraps it up on SEO, paid search strategy, things we consider when we're putting those keyword strategies together. So yeah, we enjoyed chatting about this today and hope you enjoyed listening as well. Thank you for joining us. And if you need any help with your digital marketing, whether you're a food and beverage ingredient company or another B2B industry, check us out at blueprintdigital.com. We're happy to chat with you and talk about different strategies and ways we might be able to support your digital marketing efforts. So thanks for joining us. See you soon.
That's it for today's episode of the Ingredient Marketing Podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to subscribe for more insights on marketing, food, and beverage ingredients. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.